What's up, guys? Nick Flurry here. This week, for Based on a True Story, I've decided to take a look at the film Lawless. It came out in 2012, was written by Nick Cave, directed by John Hillcoat, starring Shia LaBeouf, Tom Hardy, Jason Clarke, Jessica Chastain, Guy Pearce, Gary Oldman, and Dane DeHaan. The film is based on a true story, as it does fit into the category, but as I was doing research, I learned that most of the film is, if not all of it, is based on a book that is in turn based on legend and myth and what was passed from word of mouth. Because if you've seen the movie, the Bondurants, the main characters of the movie, Jack, Forrest, and Howard, portrayed by Shia LaBeouf, Tom Hardy, and Jason Clarke, respectively, were men whose business thrived on the legends that were spread around them, whose business thrived on the fear they caused throughout Franklin County. With it, this is what really gave them their name, and without the fear, as Tom Hardy says, they have no business. And this is really what the book really tries to focus on, but I believe it takes it to a different level, because the book is so fictionalized, so dramatized, that it has been characterized more of a novel than a piece of historical writing, which says a lot about the movie, because the book is written by Matt Bondurant, the grandson of Jack Bondurant, who, rather than going to his grandfather personally to talk to him about what was going on, he waited until after Jack died, who died, I believe, in 2001 at age 91, who lived a pretty long life. He waited after he died to actually start his research. Because if you've seen the movie, the ending, after everything's over with, after the moonshining business has come to a close, the Great Depression is ended, and Prohibition has been lifted, the Bondurants go to a normal life. They leave that past behind them, and they leave it so far behind them that it's a well-kept secret within the family. The children don't know, the grandchildren definitely don't know, and it's never brought up. But in the mid-90s, I believe, Jack's son actually asked his father about the incidents, because although there was really nothing factual to hold on to, because as I said, most of everything was based on rumor, there were things that he knew about his father. In Jack's office, he kept a pair of brass knuckles, which really was the only thing he held on to from his past that he kept, which is where his brother's Forrest. And with information he had about his father, the thing he heard, he asked him, he said, hey, I know about your past, and things just want clarification. And then through that conversation, Jack simply raised his shirt and pointed to the bullet wound he acquired from Charlie Ricks during the bridge scene. And this is what started everything. And Matt, I think his problem was that he was too afraid to approach his grandfather, because everyone knew what a stern man he was. He was too afraid to talk to him about the situation, and when he developed an interest, it was too late. So all he had was newspaper clippings and certain articles that were written about the Bondurants, which was probably also fiction, because people only knew what they heard. He did everything in secret, and court hearings that he'd read about. But this is the information he had, and mostly everything else was fictionalized. The dialogue that he came up with and everything else in the book was basically just there to raise his grandfather and his brothers up to a high standard, and they were well respected in Franklin County. They were praised for their efforts and the risk they take to deliver their product across the lines. They were respected by most. Even in the film, Floyd Banner, who I believe is based on Pretty Boy Floyd, the actual Pretty Boy Floyd, Floyd Banner in the film respected the brothers, because during a scene when Jack crosses county lines to sell 200 crates of moonshine, upon finding out who Jack was, Floyd immediately invited him into his office and made the deal he wanted. And during the scene, he says that the last thing we want to do is cause a blood feud between these men, because not only did he sort of fear them, he respected them in a level that he knew he should never cross these men. And so there's that. And the movie also plays up the legend aspects to a certain standard that the book tries to do. There's a scene where Tom Hardy's throat is cut. This is a legend that the book, I believe, focused on. The legend that Forrest walked 12 miles from their gas station to the hospital with his throat slit, bleeding out, is in like sub-zero temperatures, and made it to the hospital in time to save his life. But in reality, he was picked up by a woman he knew and driven there. And during the scene, doing his revelation, finding out that he didn't walk, she says, Jessica Chastain's character says that, and I'm paraphrasing here, she says that I should have known that you believe your own legends, because they'd have to live by these legends. That this is what kept them going strong. If for 1 second they didn't believe their own legends they were creating, or that it would come off as a lie, they'd lose everything. So it was that fear that allowed them to keep going, and the book really capitalizes on that to a point where, as I said, it's almost fiction, because I believe from my readings that it's 50% fiction, 50% fact. But with that being said, a movie is based on a book of this standard. It's hard to say what's true, what isn't, what happened, what didn't happen. But from what I've known, what I've gathered, is that the characters in the film, the brothers, were portrayed exactly how they were in real life. They were faithfully adapted. The only characters who I found were Charlie Rakes and Cricket, Dane DeHaan's character. From what I found, Cricket wasn't a character in the story. He was invented as a plot device to get Jack riled up towards the end of the film, because after Charlie Rakes breaks his neck, that was what caused Jack to go on a rampage to track Charlie Rakes down and try to kill him. I'm not going to go into a description of the scene that took place on the bridge, because it's a emotional scene. It's very powerful, and if you've seen it, you know just how powerful it is. But I will talk about what happened in real life. There was no barricade. There was no guns ablazing standoff or anything like that. It was a simple morning drive. The Barrowans were driving down the road with their cases of moonshine and trying to cross a bridge, and there was Charlie Rakes, assistant deputy sheriff Charlie Rakes, a local guy. He wasn't an ATF agent from Chicago, a local deputy sheriff who really held a grudge against the Barrowans for what they stood for. Was there blocking the bridge just to block it, just to mess with them. And somewhere along the line, Jack got upset at this. Words were said. Again, this is something that's not really that can be held as too factual, because it's not known whether Charlie Rakes started it or maybe Jack pulled the gun. But what happened in the end was Charlie Rakes pulled his gun and shot Jack in the chest. As he fell down, Forrest went to his aid, tried to lift him up, and Jack, as he was being lifted up, Charlie Rakes took out his gun and shot Forrest in the gut. And during this whole event, the other deputy sheriff who was assisting Charlie Rakes during this incident intervened and prevented him from killing the three brothers in cold blood. And and that's basically what happened. There was no shootout that took place on the bridge that was over dramatized. Forrest did not get shot 5 times as the movie portrays him to be shot. Although it was pretty cool to watch, to see him, the immortal Forrest Barteron, just stagger down to the ground and survive that incident. But Charlie Rakes actually did survive that incident and lived a few years later to become a police officer. He wasn't killed by Howard and Jack very brutally, as the movie places it. But he lived to like a few years later and died of mysterious circumstances. So with that, I guess they took liberty and said that Howard and Jack were the ones who killed him after the whole bridge altercation. But it's moments like that that really throw the movie not overboard, but makes it so so entertaining, but at the same time kind of tosses you curveballs and makes you think like, if this is really what happened. Because in the movie, the way it does, it makes everything so realistic, so grounded, that it's although it's over dramatized, you can believe it happened because of how it's portrayed on film. And I think that most of the credit for that goes to the performances of the actors and John Hillcoat's direction, because although he didn't have much to work with, he worked well with the things he had. And the Shia LaBeouf of all the actors are praised mostly by Matt Bondurant, the author of the book, for successfully playing his grandfather so well and so handling him so etiquettely. And just a little fun fact, being a method actor Shia LaBeouf is, there were several occasions on set where he actually drank hard moonshine and showed up drunk, which ended up having an altercation with Tom Hardy on set, of course. The movie's really well done, and although it raises a lot of questions of what happened, what did happen, I believe you can watch it with a high brow and just accept the movie for what it is. Although I question whether it deserves to be fit in the based on a true story category because of the questions it raised and the whole legends and myths and lore that's behind the film. But I think there's enough fact there that allows it to sit right on the edge of based on a true story. And like I said, it's a really good movie. It's really well written, really great directions here, and all the actors they really dedicated their craft well here in the film, and it really shows. If you haven't seen it, I highly recommend the movie. It's a worth watch. It's a little over 2 hours, but it's well worth the time. By the way, this video is a fan requested video from one of our subscribers. His name is Adam, and this video is for you, buddy. And for anyone else who would like to suggest something for me to look at or to review, I do take it into consideration, and this video is evidence of that. If you have anything you'd like me to talk about, or whether in this segment or any other segment, I will look at it and take it into consideration. But this has been based on a true story. I'm Nick Flurry, signing off. Thanks for watching.